I'm Meg Norberg. I'm the managing attorney of Iowa Legal Aid's Volunteer Lawyers Project. And today I'm going to talk about how to do limited scope representation. Let's get started. Limited scope representation is an agreement between a lawyer and a client that the lawyer is going to do part of the case, but not the entire case. Limited scope representation can be in any area of law as long as it's reasonable. The limited scope representation can also be in any part of the case. It could be for negotiations, document drafting, advice only, or also representing a client in a specific part of the litigation. You might hear limited scope representation referred to as unbundling, a la carte, or another type of name, but today I'm going to be using limited scope representation. Even though limited scope rules have been around in Iowa for almost 15 years, many attorneys are still not incorporating it into their practice. The Iowa State Bar Association did a review of attorneys and found that about 60% of attorneys are saying they're not doing any type of limited scope representation. This presentation will explore how to do limited scope representation for a young lawyer who may want to incorporate it into their practice. Let's start with how to do limited scope representation. The Iowa rules state that an Iowa lawyer may do limited scope representation if the limitation is reasonable under the circumstances and there is informed consent. In order to have informed consent, you would need something in writing unless you were just talking to the client over the phone. You can satisfy this writing informed consent requirement with an engagement letter to the client or a retainer agreement. You want to be very specific with what you are helping the client with and what you are not helping the client with, and that the client is free to seek separate legal assistance from another attorney on the areas that you're not assisting with. And remember, it's always a good idea for you both to sign the agreement. The rules related to limited scope depend on the type of assistance that you're providing. For example, if you're providing a client in helping in court, then you must file a limited appearance with the court before you can appear. Here's an example of what that appearance would look like for the court. Once your representation is completed, you also have to file a notice of completion that your limited appearance is over. Filing this document should result in you automatically being let out of the case without any need for a hearing or for a judge to make that decision. The attorney shall serve a copy of this on to opposing counsel as well as any other unrepresented parties and the client. The notice also must include the client's information on it, so that way they know who to serve going forward. If you're only helping client with drafting documents, but you are not going to file an appearance in the case, then you do not have to file an appearance. Rather, you just need to follow Rule 1.423, which states that every pleading or paper that's drafted by an attorney for a pro se party shall state that fact on the paper along with the attorney's information. You don't have to sign that document, but you do have to put your name, personal identification number, and if available, fax number on that document. The attorney, again, does not need to sign the document. Some attorneys use a sticker or a stamp to make this easier, but you can also just put it directly on the pleadings however you're most comfortable. Rule 1.423 goes over the attorney's responsibilities as to the veracity of the pleading. Providing drafting assistance is not an appearance in the case and does not allow for the attorney to accept service for the client. Now that we've talked about how to do limited scope, I want to cover briefly why you might want to incorporate it into your practice as a young lawyer. Traditionally, a client would pay a retainer fee that would be drawn down throughout the scope of the representation. A retainer could be upwards of $5,000. Many people, whether they can afford to or not, do not want to spend $5,000 on an attorney. They want to represent themselves instead. But when they get into the process, they find that it's very difficult and they'd be willing to pay an attorney for some assistance in their case. A limited scope practice would allow the client to pay for just the portion of the case that they want help with without having to put down a $5,000 retainer fee. Not many people in Iowa are marketing their practice this way. The ones that are report that it is very lucrative. Since most clients pay ahead of time, you don't need to worry too much about collecting fees, as clients are paying as they go. Second, limited scope representation can help with job enjoyment and work-life balance. Not all attorneys enjoy litigation. If you limit your practice to certain parts of a case, you're able to focus on the parts you like, such as drafting, advising, mediating. Litigation is very hard to predict, and at the outset, it's difficult to know if a case will take 10 hours and settle or will take hundreds of hours for a trial. When you limit the scope of your representation, you're able to know clearer what the time commitment will be and whether or not you want to accept the more unknown cases at the end. Limited scope representation can also help you hone new skills as a young lawyer. You may not feel comfortable yet signing on to take a case that you've never done before. Taking on only part of the case to get experience can help you hone those skills. Maybe a mentor will not agree to take on hundreds of hours of assistance to you, but they'd be willing to sign on to help you just learn one part of the case. Eventually, you'll have done multiple aspects of a case and feel comfortable taking it on full representation. Limited scope representation can also reduce stress. Knowing that you do not have to take every case to trial can be a really good way of controlling your stress. It's hard to vet a client after only one consultation. Limited scope representation allows you to dip your toe into a case and test it out before committing yourself to a lengthy relationship with the client that may become really difficult. Finally, limited scope can help you with the access to justice. Iowa Legal Aid serves low-income families struggling to make ends meet. The poverty to qualify for Iowa Legal Aid is $30,000 for a family of 4. These people are never going to be able to afford an attorney. Iowa Legal Aid helped 36,000 people last year, but we had to turn away 10,000 families that were struggling to make ends meet. These are Iowans who have nowhere to turn to get the justice they deserve. Iowa has 9,533 lawyers with an active law license. If each of these attorneys took 2 cases per year, we would be able to fill in this gap of justice and help those 10,000 families. The Iowa Rules of Professional Conduct 6.1 encourages attorneys to help with 50 hours of pro bono service per year, and that pro bono was supposed to be for families with limited means or organizations that help people with limited means. But not every attorney is going to be able to help a case for full representation, and that's where limited scope can really help. Attorneys have a unique set of skills that gives them the great power to effectuate serious change. As a young lawyer, please know how valuable that power is and use it to help serve these struggling families. As an attorney, you will bill a lot of hours in your career. Let's look at what those hours can do for low-income people. In 30 minutes, you can advise an Iowan on retirement considerations. In 1 hour, you can negotiate with a landlord to keep a veteran from becoming homeless. In 2 hours, you can help a survivor of domestic abuse fill out pro se divorce papers. In 3 hours, you can represent a child with a disability at an IEP meeting. In 4 hours, you can help an immigrant incorporate their small business. Iowa Legal Aid is here to support you. We have a limited scope toolkit with forms, court rules, and case law. Email me at mnorberg@iowalaw.org for more information. Thanks for watching.